In 1806, a brig called the Favorite left Boston Harbor. Its cargo was listed in the manifesto, but the dock workers who loaded it assumed it was a joke or a scam. They weren't carrying spices. They weren't carrying silk or guns or opium. The ship was carrying winter. 130 tons of frozen water cut from a pond in Massachusetts, bound for the scorching heat of Martinique and the Caribbean. Consider the madness of this for a moment. This is a world before electricity, before the light bulb, and certainly before the refrigerator. Cold was not a commodity, it was a season. You either lived in it or you didn't. You couldn't move it. But a man named Frederick Tudor looked at a frozen pond on his father's estate and saw something else. He didn't see weather, he saw unharvested gold. He believed he could trap the cold, put it on a boat, sail it through the hottest waters on earth, and sell it to people who had never seen frost in their lives. Everyone told him he was insane. The press mocked him, his friends abandoned him, and for 20 years he failed. He rotted in debtors' prisons. He lost his sanity. But he didn't just invent a business, he invented a want. He broke the fundamental rule of nature, that geography is destiny, and in doing so, he accidentally built the modern world, right before technology destroyed him.
To understand how Tudor succeeded, we have to look at the how, because the idea is the easy part. The logistics were a nightmare. Insight. The problem wasn't just melting, it was physics. In his early attempts, Tudor lost nearly half his cargo before it even reached the destination. He tried straw, he tried wheat chaff. Nothing worked. The heat always won. Then he turned to science, specifically the insulation properties of sawdust. Sawdust is a waste product, but Tudor realized that if you packed ice blocks tightly together, square block to square block, and encased the entire mass in a foot of sawdust, the ice stopped acting like individual cubes and started acting like a glacier. It created its own microclimate. But he still had a supply problem. Cutting axes with axes was too slow. You can't build an empire hacking at a pond one swing at a time. Enter Nathaniel Wyeth. Tudor was the visionary, but Wyeth was the mechanic. He invented the ice plow, a horse-drawn cutter with jagged metal teeth that scored the ice into perfect, uniform grids. Insight. This moment, the invention of the ice plow, is the Industrial Revolution arriving in nature. Before this, ice was harvested like a crop. After this, it was manufactured like steel. Suddenly, they weren't just harvesting the surface, they were processing thousands of tons a week. They could stack these uniform blocks like Lego bricks in the ship's hold, maximizing density and minimizing air gaps. This wasn't just efficiency, it was the conquest of geometry. By standardizing the block, they standardized the cold. So Tudor conquers the ocean. He gets the ice to the Caribbean, to Havana, eventually even to Calcutta, India. But he runs into a problem that no business school textbook prepares you for. Nobody wanted it. Imagine handing a block of ice to a bartender in Havana in 1810. He doesn't have a refrigerator to put it in. He doesn't have recipes for cold drinks. He looks at this melting wet rock and asks, "What do I do with this?" Tudor realized he couldn't just be a supplier. He had to be a drug dealer. He had to give the first taste for free. He taught bartenders how to make the smash and the mint julep. He gave ice to hospitals for fever patients, knowing that once the doctors saw it work, they would demand it. He convinced the wealthy that serving warm butter was a sign of poverty, while serving hard, cold butter was a sign of aristocracy. He literally changed the temperature of civilization. In India, this was even more profound. The British Raj was sweltering in the heat. When Tudor's ships arrived after a 4-month voyage carrying crystal-clear Wenham Lake ice from Massachusetts, it was treated like a religious artifact. Wealthy British officers would buy these blocks and bury them in specialized stone wells. The ability to offer a guest a glass of water that had ice clinking against the glass became the ultimate flex. We often think of technology as silicon and microchips, but in the 1840s, a piece of frozen pond water was the highest tech on the planet. It was a status symbol that said, "I am so rich I can command the winter to appear in the summer."
By the mid-19th century, the ice trade was one of America's few global monopolies. Tudor was the Ice King. But let's look at the secondary effects. Because of ice, the American diet changed. Fresh meat could now be transported. Fish caught in New England could be sold in the Midwest. The cold chain was born. But there is a dark irony here. This entire industry relied on a balance that was doomed to fail. It relied on nature providing the product for free and the wealthy paying a premium for the transport. Tudor became obsessed with efficiency. He became a tyrant of logistics. But while he was perfecting the sailing ship, the world was moving on. Insight. It is the classic innovator's dilemma. Tudor was so focused on making better ice ships and better ice saws that he missed the threat that didn't just move cold, but created it.
In Florida, a doctor named John Gorey was trying to treat malaria patients. He needed ice to cool them down, but Tudor's ships were unreliable and expensive. So Gorey stopped looking at the ocean and started looking at physics. He built a machine that used compression to create ice. When Gorey demonstrated his machine, the Ice King didn't applaud. He attacked. Tudor and the Natural Ice Lobby launched a smear campaign against artificial ice. They called it unnatural. They claimed it was poisoned. They said only God could make ice. They won the battle. Gorey died broke and humiliated. But you can't kill physics. By the Civil War, the blockade cut off the South from northern ice. They had to build machines. And once the machines started, they never stopped. Within a few decades, the frozen ponds of Massachusetts were abandoned. The Great White Fleet of ice ships rotted in the harbors. Why wait for winter when you can plug a box into a wall and have winter on demand? Insight. The ice trade is the only industry in history to grow to a massive global scale and then completely vanish, leaving almost no trace. There are no ice harvesting ruins. The product melted and the wooden houses rotted. It was a ghost empire. Today, we don't think about the cold. We expect it. We walk into a grocery store and see open-air freezers defying the laws of thermodynamics. We take a vaccine that has been kept at -70 degrees from a factory to our arm. Frederick Tudor is largely forgotten, but look around you. The global economy is built on the cold chain he pioneered. He taught us that we don't have to accept the world as it is, that we can terraform our own comfort. He sold us the illusion of control, and we bought it. The next time you hear the ice cubes crack in your drink, remember, that sound used to be worth more than gold.
It really makes you look at your freezer differently, doesn't it? We went from risking lives to drag frozen blocks across the equator to having winter on demand in our kitchens. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the history of the ice trade, make sure to hit that like button. It helps the channel a ton. I've got more stories coming about the hidden history behind the everyday things we take for granted, so don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out. This is Coin and Context. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.